Strength training and muscle building are not about philosophy. I know. Hey, JD, Earth to JD, you're the fit philosopher. Isn't that what your whole channel is supposed to be about? I talk a lot about different sorts of philosophies, and I talk about how animals help me learn about getting strong, and I talk about all sorts of stuff. A lot of that stuff is philosophy, but what I'm talking about are the physiological principles that we need to have if we want to get strong and build muscle. Look, I've been there before. I've done bro science stuff. I've done crazy stuff where I thought that it sounded good and I didn't do enough research. I didn't uncover the layers of what was going on to actually get down to the physiological mechanics of things, the cellular level of what's actually happening. And hey, it didn't necessarily work out to get optimal results. I think that you can skin a cat many different ways. Skinning a cat in this instance is getting strong and building muscle, but there are simple physiological and physical principles that you need to be taking in consideration if you want things to be optimized, if you want to continue to get results. And when I talk about these principles, some people like to argue and like to say, well, you can't build muscle that way. Well, if it's fitting these physiological principles, if you're fatiguing the muscle to where you're going through all of the muscle fibers, whether you do 1 set or 20 sets, whether you take 1 hour in the gym, 20 hours in the gym, 30 minutes in the gym, it doesn't matter if you're hitting these physiological principles and then recovering from them and getting adequate nutrition. That's, at the end of the day, what it comes down to. Are you threatening the survival of that muscle tissue? If you're not, if you do 3 sets of 10 and it doesn't threaten the survival of that muscle tissue because you've been there before, yeah, you get a little bit of a pump on, but you've done that over and over again, it will not grow. It might stop it from degrading, from atrophying, from losing your strength, from losing your muscle. But if we want to talk about growth, if we want to talk about building, strength training we're always trying to improve, building muscle, body building, you're building your muscle up. If you want to continue to do that, there are certain principles. You got to threaten that muscle tissue. How do you threaten the survival of that muscle tissue? You have to take it to failure, meaning at or close to. I don't think we ever get to real failure because the maximum amount that we can really output in our muscle is far exceeds what we can, produce in the gym. But what we want to do is we want to, again, fatigue all those muscle fibers and threaten that survival of the tissue so that it has the stimulus to say, hey, let's build, because that was threatening. If you don't do that, you can do that in 1 set. You take it to failure. You can do that in 2 sets. You can do that in 5 sets. You can do that in 10 sets. It doesn't matter how you do. You can do that with light weights. You can do that with heavy weights. My philosophy comes from physiology, but when it comes to your training philosophy, your training preference, I would like to say, is more accurate. Do you prefer to do 1 set, or do you prefer to do 10 sets or 3 sets? But if you don't get with that 1 set, if I do 1 set but I don't go to failure, it's not worth it. If I do 10 sets and none of them are to failure, it's not worth it. Again, you have to have the physiological principles because it's not about your philosophy, it's about the physiology. If you get your muscle threatened, it will respond, and with enough rest, enough recovery in between training sessions, and with the adequate nutrition, the amino acids from protein, you will grow that muscle tissue. If you don't hit one of these points, it's not JD's philosophy, it's just simple physiology. So we can argue about what's more effective, what's least effective, what happens, but if we start talking about, hey, that's not physiologically possible because of X, Y, and Z, you better come with receipts. You better understand those physiological principles. That's what I've done. I got a degree in kinesiology, and some of the stuff that I was taught in classes, all right, is not necessarily folded under to the actual physiological level. It's checked off by an organization, by a research study. And that research study, I've read some of these research things, and it's like done with 12 participants. Is that really indicative of the population? Oh, we got this study. We had this one study done. So many of fitness trends that I've been a part of have been done through these 1 or 2 little tiny studies, and people go hog wild with them. What do I want to translate when I say it's not philosophy? It's the actual physiological principles. And some of these don't come from doing a study. They come from doing study after study after study, looking at metadata, meta-analysis of all these different studies and seeing what actually takes place. A lot of the studies are also done with professional athletes. So is the physiology of a professional athlete like the physiology of a normal human being? They're already fit, or they're already genetically predisposed to be stronger, to be faster. So when we look at these things, if we're not really taking in consideration what's actually going on at the cellular level, why are they getting those adaptations versus, oh, well, this worked for them. Things might work for different people for many different reasons. Like I've said in the past, I made a video about, training insane. I like training super intense for one set because it's hard for me to get up again to do another set. So if I do a warm-up set and then I do a working set and then I do another set and I do another set, for me mentally and physically, I get fatigued and I actually don't get the same level of fatigue on the muscle. It's more of a systemic fatigue that doesn't translate into muscle growth. It's more of a nervous system fatigue. It's harder for me than to build the muscle. So if I go in and I do one set, but because I'm so focused, I can really, really, really target those muscle fibers and, like I said, threaten that muscle tissue, I'm going to get a better response as long as I recover and I get the adequate nutrition, like we're saying. So again, there's many different ways of doing things, but if it's not based on actual physiological principles, things go out the window. When people talk about, oh, well, you shouldn't go slow in the gym, you should go fast and explosive. What's the physiological principle of that? Oh, well, Henneman's size principle, right? You're gonna recruit more muscle fiber if you're going full bore, full speed. Well, Henneman's size principle doesn't matter about speed. It matters about need. Because you're pushing faster, you're going to be using more muscle fibers. But what comes with the risk of that? Risk of injury, high forces, physics. Now we're going to get into physics. Force equals mass times acceleration. So if I increase the mass, or heavy weights, if I increase the acceleration, high speeds, I'm going to increase the force. What we want to do to stay safe, you can call that a philosophy. I just call it physics. I want to stay safe. I want to protect my joints. I want to protect the fact that the exercise already is dangerous. Let's not make it more dangerous by going super fast or going super heavy. If the target is building strength, if the target is building muscle, why not do it safely? That's maybe my philosophy, but it's really, you could say it's a philosophy, but again, you could get results going fast, but at what risk? And so I look at risk when I come into these things. So maybe that's my philosophy. It's also a preference, but what ends up happening? If I go slow, I end up decreasing the risk of injury. I also keep the work in the muscle because if I drop a weight, I'm using gravity to bring the weight down. I'm not using my muscle to lower the weight. I'm not using my muscle to press. If I'm bouncing it off my chest, I'm using stretch reflex, or I'm using a little bit of momentum to get it up versus using the muscle. So for me, I look at these principles, these physics principles, and I translate them into my workout. And you could call it a philosophy, but I just look at them as those physiological principles that, again, if you don't take into consideration, you could have dire consequences because you might be wasting your time in the gym overtraining or doing 3 sets of 10 when you're not even getting to fatigue, wasting your time. So you might be undertraining even though you're in the gym for an hour a day, like I used to. I wasn't taking myself to that full level of fatigue. Or you could be overtraining by doing too much volume and just completely thrashing a muscle and then not getting enough recovery because someone told you you should be in the gym twice, you should hit every muscle group twice a week. Okay. Someone told you that, but what it comes down to is the physiological principles. Can you recover from the bout of exercise? From that stimulus, can you recover? Some people it takes 1 day, some people it takes 3 days, some people it takes 7 days. That's a difference in the muscle tissue taking that time. I used to look at these graphs, okay? And what they didn't tell me was the graphs are not exact. They don't line up exactly with 2 days or 3 days or 4 days. There's a spectrum and everyone's different. There's lots of different factors that go into it. So if you don't take that in consideration, if you just say, well, this one study said that this is how it goes, that's philosophy. That's not physiology. How you should train is take the physiological principles of Again, exhausting those muscle fibers, threatening the muscle tissue, recovery, nutrition, all of those things, and find out how it fits with your lifestyle, with your preference, with what you can tolerate in the gym and out of the gym. When someone says, here's the program, this is the only way you can do it, my ears perk up and I get very skeptical, because there's lots of different ways of doing things, but is it based on actual physiological principles? So the reason why I'm talking about this today is there's so much information out there. There's so many different things that you can do, but what should you really look at? How does the muscle actually grow? How does the body actually end up building that muscle, building the strength, doing all the things that your goals are? Sometimes we get caught up in a program or in a person or in this philosophy debate, and we're not really looking at what actually can happen at that cellular level, which is the muscle cell, and what the nervous system is doing to actually build the strength and build the muscle. So take those things into consideration. Look at the actual underlying principles, the laws of physics, right? Not the opinions, not the philosophies of physics. The laws of physics. That's what's going to help you figure out how to design a training program that fits for you. What are my philosophies, my preferences, the things that I try to translate in my programs? Safe, effective, time efficient. The reason why I go slow is to stay safe. I use perfect technique on everything so that we can hit the right muscle groups, so that we can stay safe. I want to be efficient, okay, with my time. I don't want to be in the gym for 2 hours. I want to be in and out and on with my life because I got other stuff to do. I also get more anxiety in the gym. I don't like to be in there for too long. My nervous system can't handle it, so I like to get in and out. Maybe you enjoy being at the gym. You have friends there. That's your preference. That's more of a philosophy behind things. I have fun there. But when we come to physiological principles, when people get into these debates about things, if one person's getting the same physiological result and the other person's getting the same physiological result, but they have two different programs, it doesn't matter. Two different philosophies about things, great. But if one of them is saying this is the only way to do things because they have the secret sauce, let's just say, but it's not based in actual physiology, then that's when we get into arguments. Oh, you need to do 5 by 5. You don't need to go to failure. You need to do this. Well, why? Why? Dig a little bit deeper and look at things. If it's for other reasons, like I was saying, if it's not to build strength and to build muscle, then hey, let's examine that. Hey, it's to build a skill. Maybe that's what 5 by 5, a lot of those things are, is to build strength in the actual weightlifting itself. Most people want functional strength, and they do functional movements now. There is no such thing. You just have to exhaust that muscle fiber and let the muscle grow. I talked about it on another video. Athletic training and strength training, muscle building, they're the exact opposites. Skills and actually fatiguing the muscle. You want to, again, think about what's the biomechanics behind things, what's the physiology behind things, what's the motor learning behind things that you're really trying to do? What's your goal, and what does the textbook say down to the cellular level? If it's not taking that into consideration, it's just philosophy. If it is, then you've got something that you can then create your own preference, your own philosophy about something so that it works for you. But that's one of the dangers, is we say one size fits all. We say that this is the only way. And to me, I like to listen and I go, okay, maybe that checks out because it's based on physiological principles, but sometimes it's not. And that's when we have to go, all right, we're talking philosophy here. And that's not what strength training and muscle building should be about. So read up on your physics, read up on your physiology, your biomechanics, your nutrition, get that stuff sorted, and then come up with your program. And if you need help with that, that's when you get a trainer. And that's what my job is to do, because people are busy. They don't have time to come up with their own philosophy. They don't have time to come up with this and that and to do all these different things. So I work through that with my clients. And if you're looking for someone, find a trainer, find someone that gets the results that you want and understands these things. And then you can have, again, a buddy, a coach, a helper along the path, because these things aren't simple for people that aren't in them. Even for someone like me with a degree, I have a degree in kinesiology, and even that was challenging because I had so many different influences, all these different philosophies and all this different stuff. I'm going, what do I believe? Well, once I started to put that stuff away and actually look at what are the physiological principles, not the philosophies of people, the actual principles themselves, that's when I started to get clarity. And then I was like, oh, okay, no wonder this works and that doesn't. Instead of doing all that guesswork, hire a professional, make sure that they know what they're talking about when they do when they're able to explain things. Can they explain it on a cellular level, on a physiological level, or is it just I learned it from this coach and I got this certification? Look, I've got tons of certifications. Doesn't mean they're all correct. Some of them are just philosophy. Find out the physiology, the physics, the biomechanics, all that good stuff, and you'll find out on your own, but maybe I'll share some videos about things like I have in the past, but at the end of the day, it's all the same stuff, and it's not that complicated. And that's another reason why we want to keep our focus grounded in reality, because we tend to overcomplicate things, and let's not do that. All right, until next time, I'll see you then.